The UES Defiance burst out of the asteroid field at maximum speed, alarms blaring and hull plates glowing from the heat of atmospheric friction against space debris. Behind them, the Devourer fleet had given up pursuit through the narrow passages, but Marcus knew they wouldn't stay hidden much longer. "Rodriguez, are our transmissions getting through?" Marcus asked, watching the main screen as they raced toward the defensive fleet. "Broadcasting on all frequencies, Sergeant. Full tactical data on the invasion force, their positions, estimated numbers, everything we recorded." Max sat beside Marcus's chair, panting heavily but alert. The dog's guidance through the asteroid maze had saved their lives, but Marcus could see exhaustion in his companion's eyes. Whatever ability allowed Max to navigate space like familiar territory was taking its toll. "Response from Fleet Command?" Marcus asked. Rodriguez shook her head. "Nothing yet." "Wait. Incoming transmission from Admiral Vextar." The main screen flickered, showing the crystalline form of the Coalition's senior admiral. His body was glowing with what Marcus had learned indicated stress or anger. "Sergeant Chen," Vextar's voice rang like breaking glass. "Your transmission claims to have discovered a massive Devourer fleet in Grid 77 Alpha. Our long-range sensors detect no such presence." "Admiral, they're using some kind of cloaking technology that hides them from standard sensors. My crew physically observed over 300 vessels emerging from concealed positions. Impossible. Our sensor technology is the most advanced in the galaxy. If there were enemy ships in that region, we would detect them." Marcus felt his temper rising but kept his voice level. "Sir, with respect, they've been building an entire staging platform in the shadow of asteroid 77 Alpha 12 Delta. They have a full invasion fleet ready to launch." A new voice joined the transmission. General Thorne's reptilian features appeared beside Admiral Vextar. "Human, your primitive sensors are clearly malfunctioning. Do not create panic with false reports." "Sir, I'm sending you our complete sensor logs and visual confirmation. The evidence is clear." "Evidence gathered by inferior technology and interpreted by inexperienced personnel," General Thorne replied dismissively. "We will investigate your claims when time permits, but the main fleet cannot be diverted based on unconfirmed reports from a patrol vessel." The transmission ended, leaving Marcus staring at a blank screen. Around him, his crew exchanged worried glances. "They're not going to listen," Lieutenant Torres said quietly. "No," Marcus agreed. "They think we're too primitive to detect something their advanced sensors missed." Max suddenly stood up, his body tense and alert. A low growl rumbled in his throat as he stared at the navigation display. Marcus followed his gaze and felt his blood turn to ice. "Torres, long-range sensors now." "Scanning," she replied, then gasped. Massive energy signatures emerging from the asteroid field. Multiple contacts moving fast toward the main fleet. The main screen lit up with targeting data as hundreds of Devourer vessels burst from concealment, their dark hulls now visible against the starfield. They moved in perfect formation, obviously following a carefully planned attack pattern. "Kim, emergency speed to fleet position," Marcus ordered. "Rodriguez, broadcast warning on all frequencies. Tell them the attack is beginning." "Already transmitting, Sergeant." The Coalition fleet scrambled to respond, but they had been caught completely off guard. Ships that had been in standard patrol formation struggled to reorganize for combat, while the Devourer fleet closed the distance with terrifying speed. Marcus watched the tactical display as chaos erupted across the communication channels. Alien commanders shouted orders in dozens of languages, while their translation systems struggled to keep up. The carefully organized defense grid was falling apart before the battle had even begun. "Incoming transmission from Captain Yildana," Rodriguez announced. The Serenian captain appeared on screen, her usual calm demeanor replaced by urgency. "Sergeant Chen, your warning is confirmed. The enemy fleet numbers over 400 vessels. How did you detect them when our sensors failed?" Marcus looked at Max, who was now standing with his front paws on the navigation console, studying the battle display with intense concentration. "Captain, it wasn't our sensors. It was Max. Your companion animal?" "Yes, ma'am. He detected them somehow, guided us through the asteroid field when they tried to capture us, and he's doing it again now." Captain Yildana's large eyes widened. "What do you mean, doing it again?" Max barked twice and pawed at a specific section of the tactical display. Marcus looked where the dog was pointing and saw empty space. "There," Marcus said, trusting his companion's instincts completely. "Grid section 1279. There's something there." "Sergeant, that sector shows empty space on all our sensors." "Trust the dog, Captain, please." There was a moment of hesitation. Then Captain Yildana turned to someone off-screen. "Concentrate all sensor sweeps on grid 1279. Full spectrum analysis." Seconds later, her face changed. "By the ancient stars, there's another fleet, cloaked vessels moving to flank our main formation. How could your companion detect them?" Marcus didn't have an answer for that, and there wasn't time to figure it out. The battle was starting, and the coalition forces were about to be caught between two enemy fleets. "Captain, recommend immediate withdrawal to defensive position Beta 7. If we stay here, they'll surround us." "Agreed. I'm transmitting your recommendations to Admiral Vextar." But the Admiral was busy trying to maintain order among ships that were taking heavy fire from the primary Devourer fleet. Energy weapons lit up space as shields flared and hull plates vaporized under sustained bombardment. Max barked again and ran to different sections of the navigation display, pawing at locations that meant nothing to Marcus but clearly meant everything to the dog. "Torres, translate Max's positions into navigation coordinates. Send them to Captain Yildana." "Sergeant, I'm not sure how to—" "Just do it. Plot every spot he's indicating and transmit the data." Lieutenant Torres worked frantically to convert Max's movements into useful information while the battle raged around them. The UES Defiance was racing toward the combat zone, but their light weapons would be useless against the massive Devourer warships. "Transmission from Captain Yildana," Rodriguez called out. "Sergeant Chen, we've analyzed the coordinates your companion provided. They correspond to hidden enemy positions, all of them, behind asteroids using cloaked technology positioned for ambush attacks. It's impossible. No living being should be able to detect ships through advanced stealth technology." Marcus looked at Max, who was now sitting calmly beside the navigation console, watching the tactical display as if he could see the entire battle from a perspective no one else possessed. "Maybe that's exactly why he can do it," Marcus said quietly. "Because he's not trying to use technology to see them. He's using something else entirely." The battle was going badly for the coalition forces. Despite advance warning about the flanking maneuvers, the Devourer fleet was simply too large and too well coordinated. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes while others limped away trailing atmosphere and debris. Then Max did something unexpected. He walked calmly to the communication console and barked once, sharp and commanding. "What does he want?" asked Rodriguez. Marcus had an idea. "Open a channel to all coalition ships. Emergency frequency." "Channel open." "Sergeant!" Marcus knelt beside Max and put his hand on the dog's head. "Show them, boy. Show them what you see." Max moved to the navigation display and began systematically indicating positions throughout the battle zone. Not just where enemy ships were hiding, but where they were going to move next. His movements were precise and purposeful, like he was reading an invisible map that showed the future of the battle. Torres translated each position into coordinates and transmitted them to the fleet. Within minutes, responses began flooding in. "Coalition ship Aurora confirms enemy vessels at coordinates 779, moving to intercept. Battle Group Theta reports cloaked ships exactly where human coordinates indicated. Engaging now." "This is impossible," came Admiral Vextar's voice over the communication system. How is a primitive animal predicting enemy movements with perfect accuracy? Marcus keyed the transmitter. Admiral, Max isn't predicting anything. He's seeing patterns that our technology can't detect. Trust his guidance, and we can win this battle. What followed was the strangest military engagement in galactic history. A German shepherd from Earth stood at a navigation console, pointing at sections of empty space that contained hidden enemy ships. Coalition forces, guided by translated coordinates from a dog's movements, began systematically outmaneuvering an enemy that had thought itself invisible. The Devourer fleet, accustomed to fighting opponents who relied entirely on technology, found themselves facing an enemy that somehow anticipated every move. Their carefully planned ambushes were discovered and countered. Their flanking maneuvers were blocked before they could be completed. "Enemy fleet is breaking formation," Torres reported with amazement in her voice. "They're retreating back toward the asteroid field." But Max wasn't finished. He pawed urgently at the navigation display, indicating a position deep within the asteroid field. "There's something else," Marcus realized. "Captain Yildana, Max is showing us something in the asteroid field. Grid position 77 Alpha 11. "Scanning that position now," came the reply. "Sergeant, we're detecting massive energy signatures. It appears to be some kind of command ship, much larger than the others." The flagship, the heart of the Devourer fleet. Max had somehow identified the one target that would end the battle decisively. "All available ships, converge on grid 77 Alpha 11. Admiral Vextar's voice rang across the communication channels. "Target the command vessel." The combined coalition fleet focused their attack on the coordinates Max had provided. Energy weapons from dozens of ships concentrated their fire on what their sensors still showed as empty space. Then the enemy's cloaking failed under the sustained bombardment, revealing a massive dreadnought that dwarfed every other ship in the battle. The Devourer flagship tried to retreat deeper into the asteroid field, but Max was already indicating its escape route. Coalition forces, guided by a dog's incomprehensible ability to see through advanced alien technology, systematically cut off every avenue of retreat. The battle ended when the Devourer flagship exploded in a cascade of secondary explosions that lit up the entire asteroid field. The remaining enemy ships, leaderless and outmaneuvered, scattered in all directions and jumped to hyperspace. Silence filled the communication channels as the magnitude of what had happened began to sink in. Admiral Vextar was the first to speak. "Sergeant Chen, report to the flagship immediately. Bring your companion." An hour later, Marcus stood in the main conference room of the Coalition flagship, surrounded by the same alien commanders who had mocked him days earlier. Max sat calmly beside him, seeming unaware that he had just changed the course of galactic history. "How?" Admiral Vextar asked simply. "Our scientists have analyzed every aspect of this engagement. Your animal should not have been able to detect cloaked vessels or predict enemy movements. It defies all known principles of technology and biology." Marcus looked around the room at beings who represented dozens of advanced civilizations, all staring at a simple German shepherd with expressions of bewilderment and newfound respect. "Maybe that's the point," Marcus said. "You've all evolved beyond the need for animal companions. You rely on technology for everything, but Max doesn't use technology. He uses instinct, intuition, abilities that developed over millions of years of evolution." General Thorne's forked tongue flicked out nervously. "Are you suggesting that primitive instincts are superior to advanced technology? I'm suggesting they're different, and sometimes different is exactly what you need." Captain Yildana stepped forward, her branches rustling with what Marcus had learned was deep thought. "On my world, we abandoned animal companionship, believing it was a sign of primitive thinking. Perhaps we abandoned something valuable." Max chose that moment to stand up and walk to each alien commander in turn, sniffing them carefully before returning to Marcus's side. Several of the beings stepped back nervously, clearly unsure how to interact with a creature they had dismissed as irrelevant. The Devourer fleet was defeated because they made the same mistake we did, Admiral Vextar said slowly. They assumed that advanced technology was always superior to primitive methods. They never considered that some abilities cannot be replicated by machines. Marcus nodded. Max has been with me through dozens of battles. He saved my life more times than I can count. Not because he has advanced sensors or weapons, but because he sees patterns that technology misses. And that is precisely why humanity deserves full membership in the coalition, Captain Yildana announced. Not despite your primitive technology, but because you have retained abilities we have lost. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. First contact protocols, military assignments, the entire relationship between humanity and the galactic community would need to be reconsidered. Admiral Vextar's crystalline form flickered with what Marcus had learned indicated deep emotion. Sergeant Chen, I formally apologize for dismissing your warnings and underestimating your capabilities. Your species has proven that strength comes in many forms. Thank you, Admiral. But it wasn't my species that won this battle. It was Max. General Thorne looked down at the dog with what might have been newfound respect. Perhaps we should establish new protocols for interaction with human-animal companions. If they possess abilities our science cannot explain, we should learn from them rather than dismissing them. Max seemed to understand that he had become the center of attention. He wagged his tail once and then settled into his comfortable sitting position, content that his job was done. As the meeting continued with discussions of new defensive strategies and expanded human roles in the coalition, Marcus reflected on how quickly everything had changed. Days ago, humans had been treated as primitive newcomers, barely worthy of consideration. Now, alien civilizations were talking about learning from human intuition and the value of bonds between species. Max had done more than help win a battle. He had shown the galaxy that sometimes the most advanced technology in the universe was no match for loyalty, instinct, and the ancient partnership between humans and their faithful companions. The Devourers had mocked humanity's primitive ways. They had discovered too late that those primitive ways were exactly what made humans dangerous to underestimate. And at the heart of it all was a German shepherd who had never doubted for a moment that his human needed his help to save the galaxy.